I don't want a long answer. Yes or no. Have you led an audit of any organization of which you were in charge?
Senator, in both of the organizations I ran, we were always completely fiscally responsible.
Yes or no, did you lead an audit?
And the way
yes
my
or
leadership
no,
has
did you lead
been
an audit?
stated
Yes or
has
no?
been completely
What are you afraid of? You
mischaracterized.
can't answer this question. Yes or no, did you lead an audit? Do you not know this answer?
Senator, every
yes or
part
no?
of my leadership
yes
of these organizations
yes
has
or
been
no, did you lead an audit?
misrepresented
I will
from
take
top
that as
to
a no.
bottom.
What were the findings? So there were no findings because you've never led an audit. What guidance did you give the auditors? None, because you've never led an audit. You're not qualified, Mr. Hegseth.
Ladies and gentlemen, buckle up because what happened in this Senate confirmation hearing might go down as one of the most devastating political dismantlings we've ever seen. Pete Hegseth, President-elect's pick for Secretary of Defense, was confronted with the brutal reality of his own unpreparedness. And the senator questioning him? A battle-tested veteran who has literally lived the words of the soldier's creed. What followed was not just a tough line of questioning, it was a political evisceration that left Hegseth fumbling, exposed, and, frankly, humiliated. Stick with me, because this exchange didn't just highlight weaknesses, it raised serious national security questions. And I'll break down why this moment could be the knockout blow to Hegseth's nomination.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And also, Secretary Mattis had to have this waiver as well. Mr. Hegseth, this hearing is about whether you are qualified to be Secretary of Defense, and one of the qualifications, to answer my colleague's question, is to actually win the votes of every member of this committee and to be confirmed by the United States Senate. And you need to convince us that you're worthy of that vote, because the people of the state of Illinois voted for me to be their senator so that I could cast that vote when it comes to picking who is going to be the next Secretary of Defense. This hearing now seems to be a hearing about whether or not women are qualified to serve in combat, and not about whether or not you are qualified to be Secretary of Defense. And let me just say that the American people need a SecDef who's ready to lead on day one. You are not that person. Our adversaries watch closely during times of transition, and any sense that the Department of Defense that keeps us safe is being steered by someone who's wholly unprepared for the job puts America at risk, and I am not willing to do that. With that in mind, Mr. Hegseth, I want you to try to explain to the American people, this committee, who have to vote for you, and to our troops who are deployed around the world, why you are qualified to lead the Department of Defense. We already know that you've only led as large as a 200-person organization. We already know that you so badly mangled a budget that after you left, they had to bring in a forensic accountant to figure out what went wrong, and that the largest budget you ever managed was about $18 billion. You know, that is about 51,560 times lower than the Department of Defense budget of $825 billion. $16 million is 51,568 times smaller than the defense budget. Please describe to me, Mr. Hegseth, you talk about DOD passing an audit. Please describe to me a time or an organization when that you led underwent an audit, because you say you're going to hire smarter people than you to run this audit. I'm not asking you to be an accountant. I want you to be able to tell me what kind of guidance will be given to those employees, what will happen whether or not you pass that audit. Have you led an audit of any organization, yes or no? I don't want a long answer, yes or no. Have you led an audit of any organization of which you were in charge?
Senator, in both of the organizations I ran, we were always completely fiscally responsible.
Yes or no, did you lead an audit?
And the way
yes
my leadership
or no,
has
did you lead
been
an audit?
stated
yes or no?
has been completely
what are you afraid of? You
mischaracterized.
can't answer this question. Yes or no, did you lead an audit? Do you not know this answer?
Senator, every
yes or
part
no?
of my leadership
yes
of these organizations
yes
has
or
been
no, did you lead an audit?
misrepresented
I will
from
take
top
that
to
as a no.
bottom.
What were the findings? So there were no findings because you've never led an audit. What guidance did you give the auditors? None, because you've never led an audit. Nobody expects you to be an accountant, Mr. Hegseth. What we expect is for you to understand the complexity of this Pentagon budget process that is absolutely necessary to outfit our warfighters. Look, the Secretary of Defense is required to make quick decisions every single day with high-level information that's being provided for them. A Secretary of Defense has to have breadth and depth of knowledge. Right now, I am concerned that you have neither. Mr. Hegseth, what is the highest level of international negotiations that you have engaged in, that you have led in? Because the Secretary of Defense does lead international security negotiations. There are three main ones that the Secretary of Defense leads and signs. Can you name at least one of them?
Could you repeat the question, Senator?
Sure. What is the highest level of international security agreement that you have led And can you name some that the Secretary of Defense would lead? There's three main ones. Do you know?
I have not been involved in international security arrangements because I have not been in government other
Okay.
than serving in the military. So my job has been
So
to
no, the
lead
answer is no.
men
Can
and
you
women
name
in
one of the
combat.
three main ones that the
You're
Secretary
talking
of
about defense
signs?
arrangements. I mean, NATO might be one that you're referring to.
Status of Forces Agreement would be one of them.
Status of Forces Agreement. I've been a part of teaching
So-
about Status of Forces Agreements.
But you don't
inside
remember to
Afghanistan.
mention it? You're not qualified, Mr. Hegseth. You're not qualified. You talk about repairing our defense industrial complex. You're not qualified to that. You could do acquisition and cross-servicing agreements, which essentially are security agreements. You can't even mention that. You've done none of those. You talked about the Indo-Pacific a little bit, and I'm glad that you mentioned it. Can you name the importance of at least one of the nations in the ASEAN, and what type of agreement we have with at least one of those nations? And how many nations are in ASEAN, by the way?
I couldn't tell you the exact
No, you
amount of
couldn't,
nations in
because you've
that,
not
but I
even
know we have
bothered to
allies
do-
in South Korea and Japan and in AUKUS with Australia, trying to work
Okay.
on submarines with them.
Mr.
and data
Hegseth,
transfers
none
with
of those
them.
countries
We
are
have
in
allies
ASEAN.
across.
None of those three countries that you've mentioned are in ASEAN. I suggest you do a little homework before you prepare for these types of negotiations. Listen, Mr. Hegseth, we ask our troops to go into harm's way all the time. We ask them to go into harm's way. And this behind me is a copy of the Soldier's Creed, a copy that usually hangs over my desk here in the Senate, and you should be familiar with it. It's the same copy that hung over my desk at Walter Reed every single day that I woke up and fought my way back because I wanted to go back and serve next to my buddies who'd saved my life. This same copy, these words are repeated over and over and over again. And let me read out two things to you, two sentences. I will always place the mission first, and I am disciplined, physically and mentally tough, trained and proficient in my warrior task. Mr. Hegseth, our troops follow these words every single day, and they man up and they pack their rucksacks and they go to war. And they deserve a leader who can lead them, not a leader who wants to lower the standards for himself or raising the standards for other people. And by the way, our troops already meet the standards. We ask troops to man that ship, fight that fire, fly that helicopter until their very last breath. And they do that every single day. They cannot be led by someone who's not competent to do the job. How can we ask these warriors to train and perform the absolute highest standards when you are asking us to lower the standards to make you the Secretary of Defense simply because you are buddies with our president-elect? And by the way, he has filed for bankruptcy 6 times. I'm not quite sure he's the kind of CEO you want to refer to as a successful businessman. Let me make it clear. You can't seem to grasp that there is no U.S. military as we know it without the incredible women that we serve. Women who've earned their place in their units. You have not earned your place as Secretary of Defense. You say you care about keeping our armed forces strong and that you like that our armed forces are meritocracy, then let's not lower the standards for you. You, sir, are a no-go at this station.
From the start, the senator framed this as a matter of life and death leadership. She reminded everyone, our adversaries are watching. Any sign of weakness during this transition period could put America at risk. And then she went straight for Hegseth's record. The Pentagon's budget is $825 billion. Managing it requires surgical precision. Yet when asked point-blank whether he had ever led an audit of any organization, Hegseth dodged, stumbled, and ultimately admitted he had not. That's not a minor oversight, that's a catastrophic lack of experience for someone who wants to run the Department of Defense. Next, the senator tested whether he even knew the basics of international defense agreements. NATO, SOFAs, cross-servicing agreements, these are routine matters for a Secretary of Defense. Hegseth? He couldn't confidently name them. This is the equivalent of interviewing for a pilot's job and not knowing how to read a compass. When pressed on Asian, the bloc of 10 nations critical to our Indo-Pacific strategy, Hegseth misfired badly, listing Japan, South Korea, and Australia, none of which are in Asian. The senator's response was a gut punch. Do a little homework before you prepare for these types of negotiations. That's the kind of line that sticks because it cuts right at credibility. And then, the hearing turned deeply personal. The senator herself, a wounded veteran, pulled out the Soldier's Creed, the same one she clung to during recovery at Walter Reed. She read it aloud, emphasizing the standards our troops live and die by. And then she turned it on Hegseth. Our troops cannot be led by someone who is not competent to do the job. You are asking us to lower the standards for you simply because you are buddies with the president-elect. You, sir, are a no-go at this station. That line is devastating. In military culture, being called a no-go means you failed the test. And hearing that, in this setting, it wasn't just a rejection. It was a verdict. The senator tied it all together with a point about meritocracy in the armed forces. Women, she reminded Hegseth, already meet the standard. But Hegseth hasn't met his. And in that one exchange, she flipped his nomination narrative on its head. Instead of being the fighter who'll defend America, he's the liability who could weaken it. This hearing wasn't just about Pete Hegseth. It was about the standards we set for leadership at the very top of our military chain of command. Our troops risk their lives every single day. They deserve a Secretary of Defense who's competent, prepared, and worthy of their sacrifice, not someone who fumbles through basic questions and leans on political loyalty as a substitute for qualifications. So now I want to hear from you. Do you think Pete Hegseth just disqualified himself in front of the entire country? Or do you believe senators were being too harsh? Drop your thoughts in the comments, I'll be reading them. And if you found this breakdown useful, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the next deep dive into hearings and political showdowns that shape America's future. Until next time, stay informed, stay engaged, and let's hold our leaders to the highest standard.